Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining today. We're just giving it a few more moments for a few more people to arrive, and then we'll start things off today. But thank you for joining. Okay, I think we'll make a start. Well, welcome to our today's Bringing the World to Liverpool event. I'm delighted to be joined by Julian Frankum today. We're having a quick talk earlier, and we believe this is we've had over 50 of these events now since COVID. So if it's your first event, welcome to your first event. But I'm sure a few of you have joined these events before, so you'll know the format. Just a little bit about the format of today's event. I just want to go through a couple of housekeeping rules with you first. So if you keep your microphones on mute throughout the event, please. Sorry, my microphone went on mute then somehow. Yeah, if you keep your microphones on mute, please, that would be great, just throughout the event. Just a courtesy to our speaker. If you do want to send some questions for our speaker, we'll get to these at the end. The format of today's event is that I'll ask Julian a few questions about his career and his time at the University of Liverpool, and then we'll hand over to you for any questions. If you want to send your questions in, please send them in the chat box, which is at the bottom of your screens, and we'll get to as many as we can at the end. But without further ado, I'd like to introduce today's speaker, who, as I mentioned, is Julian Frankum, who studied a BSc in pharmacology back in 1985 with us, and is now the CEO and lead client partner at RP International, and is based in Dubai, but I believe he is joining us all the way from Mumbai today. So thank you to Julian for joining us on his travels. We're really grateful. And I just wanted to introduce Julian, and if you could just start by saying a quick hello, Julian, and tell us a little bit about yourself. Thank you. And you're on mute, Julian, sorry. There we go.
Okay.
Yeah, I can hear you now. Thank you.
Okay, excellent. Andy, thank you very much indeed. And yeah, thank you very much indeed for the kind invitation to say a few words today. I am frankly quite flattered that anyone wants to hear about my ignominious career. It's quite odd, actually, being someone that works in recruitment. I don't exactly have the archetypal career path myself. But yeah, but a brief introduction. I'm 62 years old. I graduated in 1985 pharmacology. I left uni, and I'd already been trying for 3 years to become a doctor. Couldn't quite get the grades. Went into clearing. Liverpool generously offered me a pharmacology, and so I took that and had a great 3 years. But by the time I got to the end of it, my intention was actually to try and go back into medicine and use that as a conduit. But I'd run out of steam and money, so I decided to try and use the degree to however I could. There were a few things open to me. I was offered a PhD at Liverpool, but decided it was time to sort of get my career going and get some money in, pay some of the debts off. So I came across an advert to sell medical products, of all things, where they wanted a medical degree. And so I did that for a year. It was a pretty thankless task going around the NHS trying to get money out of them to buy this product. We had a product that wasn't desperately popular, I have to say. But with hindsight, looking back, the firm was American, and they had some very orthodox sales skills, which I'll come on to later, and that stood me in good stead. I fell into recruitment because one of my fellow graduate best friends had a Golf GTI. Now, in 1985, that was the car to have. It was the yuppie vehicle to have. And so I said to my friend Nick, I said, fantastic, where did you get the car? And he said, oh, I've no idea. I said, I get these CVs, I send them out to clients, I hire these people, I get some commission and a salary, and I get this company car. So I literally gave my CV to him, and I said, great, give that to your boss, which he did. And I got hired a few weeks later. All I wanted was the car. I knew nothing about the job or what I was going on to do. But went on to do recruitment. In those days, it was I was recruiting very technical programmers for the military and for banking. I did that for about 10 years and then decided that one of the ways I could hopefully get a better living was to perhaps have my own company. And I had no better idea than that. And I approached a couple of old colleagues and said, how about it? They were like-minded, and we started up our own recruitment firm. Dear all, I really apologize for 2 seconds. I'm in a hotel room and they're just delivering a cup of tea. So give me a second.
No problem. Thanks, Julian. And just as I mentioned at the start of the event, if you do have any questions for Julian, yeah, please send them in via the chat box, which is at the bottom. So yeah, thank you.
Right, sorry about that. Okay, so I started up a recruitment firm of my own, and we rode the back of the deregulating telecoms and banking market. And what I mean by that is around in the UK at the time, we just had British Telecom. That's all we had. But the government was deregulating that market, allowing loads of new firms come in. The same thing was happening all around the world. New firms need people. So we thought, right, okay, we'll hit that market. Banking was similar. There was a lot of banking deregulation, again, allowing banks to offer new products and services. Again, they needed expertise for that. And we ended up working in a very short space of time in about 100 countries around the world, developing experts in that. We opened up in Dubai in 2001. We went on to open up in Malaysia, Singapore, Australia, New Zealand, Germany. We have a small entity in America. These days, what we do is a lot more complex because the just give me 2 seconds. Everything okay? Sorry about this. So everything's a bit more complex these days. Right now, we're speaking for free on Zoom, Skype, WhatsApp. And so telecoms companies cannot make money from voice and data like they used to. So what they did is they started going out to the industry sectors like energy, banking, healthcare, and saying to companies, look, we're Vodafone, forget that, forget telecoms. All we are is a big tech firm. We're good at networks, we're good at data, we're good at data centers. But you're a bank, for example. You look after money. Why are you looking after tech? Give us all your tech and we will look after it for you. That's what British Telecom does. It's what Vodafone does. But it meant that our traditional clients were now coming to us for skills in those sectors. And then digital transformation came along as well, which bleeds into the business sector. So it meant that we started recruiting the commercial sides and tech sides of these institutions. So now if I look around at our client sector, there's still a very strong theme of tech running through all the companies we deal with, but we're also recruiting their chief technology officers, chief marketing officers, chief HR officers, chief finance officers. I my business partner came out first in 2001. He then wanted to go back home to the UK in 2008, and I agreed to swap places with him, and came out to Dubai, and I've been here ever since. So that's a brief introduction.
Well, that's fascinating, yeah, and you've certainly been all over the world, as I'm sure we'll get on to. But yeah, thank you for sharing that with us, Julian. I want to just take you back to the kind of your start of your journey with the University of Liverpool, if I may, and kind of why you chose the University of Liverpool in the first instance, and what were your favourite things about studying at the University of Liverpool?
Well, I wish I could say it was a choice. It wasn't, but I am amazingly grateful for it. I had 3 fantastic years. But as I said earlier, I wanted to be a doctor, and I just tried and tried for 3 years, repeating my A levels, working in hospitals, and then going into clearing each year. And Liverpool was the only university that very kindly said, yeah, we've got a space in pharmacology. And I said, fine, I'll take it. And this is a true story. This was a Friday, and the chap I was speaking to said, term starts Monday, you need to get up here. So I did. I turned up with nowhere to stay, just a bag. But the university was great. The people I met just said, look, okay, let's try and get you fixed up with one people. I was too late for halls of residence. They ended up having a little network of people that rented rooms. I went in with a divorcee and two other students in Allerton, which was amazing. It was a posh part of town, a lovely, great big house, garden, facilities. It couldn't be nicer. So that's how I ended up at Liverpool. I'll tell you a little anecdote, actually. I did have 3 great years. It was fantastic. But I'm a Londoner. I'd hardly been up north at all. And as my train pulled into Lime Street Station, there's a big, or was a big, iron bridge across all the tracks. And on it, someone had painted in 6-foot high letters, all Cockneys die. And I thought, great. And I've got 3 years here. Amazing. It was also at the time of the Toxteth riots. So it was a tough place to be. But I don't regret it at all. Great teachers, great place to be. It's a fantastic university town, from a cost point of view, from pubs point of view. So yeah, all good.
That's incredible that you only had kind of a couple of days' notice. About that was a manic weekend, wasn't it? Getting everything sorted to move in a matter of days. So yeah, it's amazing how your journey started. Is there anything? I know your degree is a little bit different to kind of what you've gone into since, but is there anything that you learned at your time at university that you've used during your working life so far?
Well, as you can probably detect from what I do for a living now, I don't use my degree at all as a subject. And I think the main thing I got from university itself was just the rigor and discipline of the study. Now, as a recruiter, I'm approached by CXOs of institutions asking about their children, saying, can you give my kids some advice in terms of what they should do and this, that, the other? And I am quite old fashioned. I say, well, university, you've got to go to university. And the reason I say that is because I just think, for me at least, it gave me another 3 years that I probably needed of critical thinking, planning, organization, self-sufficiency, being away from home for the first time. And they were sort of my main takeaways. And it was also, being up north, as we say, was a great experience for me. We Londoners are pretty cold fishes. And I remember the next day after I turned up at university, going to the bus stop, and these complete strangers were talking to me, saying, "Hi, how are you? How's it going?" And I don't know you. I don't know why you're talking to me. And I found it quite odd. But of course, later on, I discovered how warm and friendly the Northerners were. It was great, and I enjoyed it immensely. I've got no friends from my school days. All my friends I've made are from the university days. So really, it was just the rigor of and the discipline that was my main takeaway from university, I guess, and just seeing the value of that tertiary education, which isn't an automatic choice for many still these days.
Well, that's really interesting to hear. Thanks, Julian. Yeah, my next question was, and I think you touched on this a little bit earlier, about what you did straight after university. I know you set up your business a little bit later, but what did you do immediately after university?
Well, I fell into sales. selling medical equipment. I got married the very next year, got a mortgage, got lots of debt, and just cracked on. I think for me, being a mature student, arriving at university sort of 3 years older than most, I just reached a point where I just really wanted to get my career going. And I don't know why. I just felt like I'd wasted a few years. I'd like to say something at this point, though, and perhaps putting my recruitment head on and the fact that I'm 62 years old. There is absolutely no need to feel that way. I do counsel a lot of grads. Again, they're usually sons and daughters of my clients. And I'm always saddened when I come away from those encounters, how much of them are full of angst in terms of what they should do and their career, or perhaps their choices aren't the best, or it's not going fast enough. I can't begin to tell you all how much time you've got. There is no time pressure, okay? Sure, if you want to get to 30, 35, you perhaps do need to start having some direction by then, which most people do. But you do have a lot of time on your side in terms of making those choices. I'll tell you the other slight regret I had at the time was not doing a travel year. I think that's also very good. And I'll tell you why I say that is because when I've been recruiting graduates to actually join my firm, actually be recruiters and working in HR, it's very noticeable which ones are the grads. And it comes down to that rigor and discipline and critical thinking. And it's also very noticeable which ones have done the gap year and done some travel and done some work. They come to our employ a lot more settled. They're much more self-aware. They understand their skills better in terms of what they like, what they don't like, what they're good at, what they're not good at. Rather than fresh grads that just take a little while to find their feet.
Really interesting again, thank you. And I know that you established your own organisation, RP International, which is established all over the world now. Can you tell us a little bit about how you set this up and what it was like establishing a business that operates all over the world?
Yeah, that's quite a question, actually. And if you see me glancing down, I just wrote a few bullet points to try and just prepare and answer something like this quite thoroughly. All I knew at the time was, or all I thought at the time was, if I remain an employee, there's only so far I'm going to get in life, perhaps, and there's only so far my earnings would go. And the real opportunity is to have my own business, be in control of my income to a certain extent. I'd also been working for a recruitment firm that was sold, and I saw how well the owners had done from that transaction, and in fact had set themselves up for life. And so this was playing on the back of my mind. And so I took that leap of faith and set my own business up. Now, when I say leap of faith, I postponed all my debts, cancelled my pension. I had an enormous mortgage. I had a baby on the way. In many respects, the timing could not have been worse. But to be honest, there is no good time. You know, it's another thing about careers. I say to people, I said, you know, look, there are no bad decisions in life. There are just decisions. And you've got to get on, make a decision, and live by what you stand by. That's a mantra I've sort of lived by all the time. And also getting out of my comfort zone as well. And that's what I did in that occasion, but didn't really realize I was doing that at the time. I just had this driving force that I wanted to get my own company going. very luckily, I had a partner who I'd worked with who wanted to join me. And my old boss, who I used to work for, who'd sold his firm and became a multi-millionaire, wanted to join too. And I'll just share that little story because my partner and I, when we first put together this very simple, utterly flawed business plan, we had no idea what we were doing. We kept on running the numbers and going, okay, fine, you've got these savings, nothing, I've got no savings. How long can we live for a while? How long would it take us to get going and set up the business and get some income coming in? And we just didn't have enough money, as simple as that. We just couldn't make the numbers work. So one night in the pub, I racked my brain and said, who do I know that's got some cash? And I remembered my old boss who'd moved to Gibraltar to take his money tax-free. And I gave him a call out the blue. I hadn't spoken to him in 3 years. And he literally answered the phone and said, hello, Jules, do you need some money? I said, well, yeah, now you mentioned it, I do. He said, amazing. I said, I'm in Gibraltar. My kids are a bit older. I want to come back to the UK and start a business. I don't really want to do any work. And I was going to give you a call to see if you and Stuart, that's my other business partner, would like to do something. So he put up the bulk of the money, took some shares in the company, but not a dramatic shareholding. And so we got going. At the time, I told you that story about we addressed the deregulating telecoms market. That is not how we got started. We didn't know what market we were going to attack. We were based in Crawley in Sussex. We started ringing local firms, offering our services. And after making many calls for many weeks, we stumbled across a telecoms client who was desperate for a particular niche bit of software skill. And then we realized it was a skill that all these new telecoms companies needed. Similar story for banking. And we got going that way. A couple of years into starting the firm, we hired 2 Palestinian British guys who were in the office using their Arabic to call into the Middle East. And that resulted in some client meetings. We flew over and we could see at the time that Dubai was absolutely booming. And so we decided there and then to open up our office, our first overseas office. Again, we had no idea how colossally difficult that was. But you just get stuck in and just do it. You learn and you make mistakes as you're going along. I think your question was more to do with what advice and what learning did I get from that. And having been in Dubai for quite some time, I go on the radio quite a lot. They give me a call and say, would I come on and talk about a particular careers issue or a particular issue of the market or something like that. And one of the things I speak about is, and I know it's a bit obvious, is to have a very detailed, exhaustive contract when you set up the business with your partners. I know that sounds very obvious, but in my part of the world in particular, it isn't. A lot of Indian firms, Pakistani firms, a lot of Arabic firms, they go into business with family. And then when money gets involved, it becomes a bit divisive and difficult. And many of them end up falling out and it gets a bit fractious. And because there's no agreement in place, it gets even worse. Now, we never had that problem because the guy that put up the money for my business had run a huge business before. So when we started putting together the articles of association in terms of, you know, the framework of running the business, Steve, this senior partner of mine, would keep on coming back to us and saying, I've thought of something else. What should we do about this? And well, if we make this sort of money, you know, how would we share out the dividends? And we went through every 5 minutes here. Well, what about this? And I've just thought of this. And one day he came in And he said, look, I've just had another thought. What about if one of you gets divorced and your wife has access to the shares and she gets remarried? How do we handle that? And by then, we just wanted to get going. And we said, Steve, for goodness sake, let's just run the business, put a contract in place, and it's fine. Anyway, two of us got divorced, and we had to resort to that contract to actually sort out the issues. It was never a problem. But the other thing I wanted to say is we've never had a problem. I've been in business with these partners for 28 years now, more or less. And every time we've had something that looked a little bit difficult to handle, Steve would just pull out the contract and say, that's fine. What did we agree? We agreed that in writing. And all the argument goes away because there it is in writing. So get a contract, sort out the rudimentary business plan in terms of, in my case, it was how much money have we got? How long before we can actually bring some money in? How long can I live for before I go bust, before I can't pay the mortgage? And we all worked out, we had about a year. And that was enough to take that leap of faith to get going. Yeah, does that answer? I know, I'm sorry, I'm rambling a little bit, but does that answer some of your
That's
questions?
absolutely fantastic. Yeah, it's absolutely fascinating to hear how you set it up from kind of scratch and how it all came about. That's absolutely wonderful. Thank you for being so open and honest about that. It's really interesting to hear. I think you've kind of already answered my next question, which was if there's anyone kind of in the audience who's looking to set up their own business, what would be your main bits of advice? But you've kind of covered that with the contracts and things like that. So I'll move on to the next question, which is, can you tell us a little bit, and I appreciate this will probably change on a daily basis, but what does your daily routine look like at RP International?
Yeah, interesting. I like 2 hours in the morning before anyone comes in. Actually, I'm sure my staff like me to have 2 hours on my own as well, rather than working with me. I get in at 7. Most people come in around about 9. There's a couple of others that come in around about 7. But that's because some people get car shares into work, and so they're dependent on those timing. But I like 2 hours in the morning where there's no one there, where I can sit, get my first umpteen coffees going, and get my email out of the way, get my plan sorted out for the day in terms of what I've got to do. As a headhunter, my business, my day-to-day routine is literally going around my clients, seeing what they need. So doing a degree of business development. And then the rest of it is whatever business I pick up, actually working on it and finding people. Now, given my seniority and my connections in the region, that consists of getting assignments for clients and then handing it out to some of the staff to work on to help them develop and grow and build their business and pipeline. But I've always made a point of keeping some of the recruitment assignments to myself. And I do that for 2 reasons. Firstly, I enjoy it. I absolutely enjoy what I do. I think going back 25, 30 years when I was selling medical products and going through sales training, I sort of got something right, and that is, it's something I enjoy. But what I didn't know at the time is how much I love people. There's nothing I like more than sitting down with a candidate and finding out what their provenance is and going through it. So I actually like the recruitment process. And the other reason I do my own assignments is because I don't feel comfortable with telling my colleagues how they should or shouldn't run their desk, as it were, without me having up-to-date first-hand information of what the market is doing. And the Middle East market is very complicated for lots of different reasons. It's not homogenous. We have umpteen different dialects here. You have different flavors of Islam here. You have a lot of tribalism here, not in a bad way, but just in the way that the families and the tribes and the royalty have evolved over the last few centuries. And you have to understand how that works. And it's quite heavily nuanced. So I like to be able to keep up to date with that. Second thing is, Dubai of all places is, I don't think there is anywhere in the world that is transforming at a rate and dimension that Dubai is. Now, there's a couple of reasons for that. This place, what, 60 years ago, 70 years ago, the Arabs were pearl divers, fishermen, nomadic traders, camel herders, goat herders. They lived a desperately frugal, subsistent life. Even the king, Sheikh Maktoum, had his grandfather would have had a similar upbringing, and indeed even the king would not have been the most wealthiest person amongst the tribe. You had different merchants who would be wealthier, but they weren't part of the lineage, so they weren't rulers. Now, oil came along in the 1950s and 1960s, colossal oil wealth, not in Dubai, but neighboring Abu Dhabi. Abu Dhabi sits on one of the biggest oil reserves in the world. And overnight, a place that was a barren and very toxic place to live became the epicenter of geopolitics. Colossal amounts of oil, lots of different governments vying for position to get the relationships in the region, and the Arabs themselves having to deal with the fact that one day they had no money, now they've got astronomical wadges of cash to spend on everything. And they've spent it on infrastructure, education, healthcare, banking, you name it, to create this city. And they've got no legacy. So if you have a change of processes or systems, or if you get AI comes along in England, for example, it's very difficult to adopt some of that technology and do things differently. But the king just says, hey, fine, we'll just do this. And so things are very, very, very fast paced here. So as a headhunter, trying to keep up to date with the skills that are necessary for the region and what my clients want and what they're thinking, I have to second guess that all the time to stay ahead of the game. And again, by doing my own assignments, that's what I do. So that's what my day looks like: headhunting, business development, obviously management of my staff and the office as a whole. I'm one of the founders, so I get involved at a group level as well. And then evenings, well, I'm too old for all the jogging and stuff like that, but Dubai is a very outdoor life. We're very, very lucky, apart from 6 months of the year when it's just too hot to go outside. I do a lot of yoga. I used to play a lot of polo. I used to swim a lot, train, gym, that sort of thing. But we have a very good gastronomical side in Dubai because it's a very touristy town. So there's a lot of good wining and dining you can do out here as well. There's not a lot to see and do, you know. Dubai is a tiny place. It's about 30 or 40 kilometers long. You know, it takes you 2 seconds to go from one end to the other. We've got a beach, we've got some buildings, we've got a desert, and we've got some small mountains on one side. That's your lot. But not on a day-to-day basis. One of the best things about being here is I am in the center of the world. So I am 4 hours away from Nairobi. I flew to Mumbai today for a week off with my wife. So we're 3 hours from Mumbai, we're 3 hours from Sri Lanka, 2 hours from Beirut. I can be in Turkey in a few hours. And if I get the 7:45 flight from Dubai to London, because of the time difference, I arrive in London at lunchtime. It's so accessible. I can be in Thailand in 6 hours. I can be in Perth in 8 hours. So if you're someone that likes travel, which I do, it's just fantastic. So a lot of it consists of that. The other part of my day is meeting people. Because of who I am, the Middle East is quite small. It's very, very connected, and Dubai in particular is extremely connected. People fly in, it's a hub. Now, on the one hand, it can be quite a pain because there's not a day that goes by that some director will call me and say, hey, I'm in Dubai, do you fancy a coffee? And there's a part of me saying, yeah, like I've got time for a coffee, but I never know when that guy might be in an important position in a company and needs my services of recruitment. So I see everybody, and I make a point of doing so, and I make a point of telling my staff. It's not a hardship. I do actually like those conversations. The final thing that I'm doing is I'm in the middle of writing a book about my time here. If that's another story that we probably haven't got time for, but if anyone's read any Bill Bryson and is familiar with the sardonic way in which he writes his travel writing, I got in contact with him many years ago because I was such a fan. And I said, look, I'd love to read about Dubai and India, where my wife is from, through your words. And he said to me, he said, well, look, thank you very much. He said, but I like to take the piss out of where I am, and I don't feel comfortable about doing that with a developing country. I travel to developed countries, but I've read some of your stuff. Why don't you do it? So I'm in collaboration with a BBC journalist now who's helping me put together some of my anecdotal stories about working and living and traveling around the region. So that's the other thing that chews up a big amount of my time as well.
Wow, yeah, that sounds fascinating, and yeah, let us know how the book goes on. I'm sure it'll be a fabulous read. And
Can I just add one more point? I've just
yeah.
noticed something else as well. The other thing I do conscientiously, because actually I don't think I have a lot of emotional quotient, so it's something I have to work out a lot. But I spend a lot of time going around my office and making a point of asking and finding out how they are and what they're working on and how their families are. And I do that for a couple of reasons. In my office, we have, and most offices here, we have quite an eclectic mix of people. And whilst what I'm about to say might not sound politically correct, get over it. It is the way it is out here, in that the Middle East has Western expats like me that tend to be in some of the better mid-range and senior positions. But it also has cheaper Asian workers coming in. So you find most companies have quite a blend of that. And sadly, the Asian community doesn't always have the easiest of time here. There's quite a discriminatory element that pervades the region, okay? Now, I've got a mix in my office, and they're all wonderful. They all work amazingly hard, and I make a big effort to get around and finding out how they are and what's going on, what their issues might be, and just making sure that they're all treated fairly and everyone's well looked after. And the other reason I do that is a few years ago, we enlisted the services of a very, very good psychometric profiler, which I'd never done before. And he came to my office one day to try and sell this service of his. I knew nothing about it. He had sent to me and my business partners a psychometric form that we had to fill in. Pretty basic thing, 30 odd questions about myself, or what I thought about myself. And in this presentation, this gentleman described me perfectly. It was ridiculous how much he knew about me from this simple amount of information that I'd given to him. And it was the same for all my partners. We were just, it was blown away. It was like watching a magic show. It was ridiculously good. So we hired this guy's services, and he and I have had a fantastic relationship for the last 10 years now. I profile myself every year to see how I'm changing. And I do it because we don't always read ourselves as well as we should. And so it's nice to understand why things frustrate me, why I'm better at other things. But he also profiles everyone in my company and everyone in my office, and always has done since we engaged him. And it's quite a sophisticated tool once you get used to it, and I'll explain why. we've all got different things about us, different hot buttons that we, make us tick. And it's amazing when someone clever like this psychometric profiler points them out to you, how interesting that makes it and how much more effective as a leader it makes me. So I'll hire someone, he'll get profiled, and this gentleman, Roy, will come back to me with his feedback and he'll go, right, Julian, this guy, he's great, fantastic, you should hire him. But I'll tell you now, he's going to piss you off because he's going to want to do this and he's going to want to do this. And you're going to hate that. You're going to hate that. But you're only going to hate it because this is what you're like. So you need to learn to da, and he will need to learn to this, that, and the other. And then it's fine. And once you're armed with that information, it makes your management and motivation of these people much more intuitive. And we use it on an ongoing basis as well. If I've got a situation where I'm not getting on very well with a member of staff, I've got a problem, I will go to Roy. I'll go, Roy, get Stuart's file out. Get Stuart's file out. He's just said this. How do I handle that situation? And again, he'll say, right, Stuart has said this because this is how he works and this is what makes him tick. And I know it's upsetting you because you hate that kind of thing because of this, and this. So what you've got to do and how you've got to handle it, it's very, very good. So a long-winded answer, but the other part of my day is just making sure I understand what's going on with all the people that work in the office and where they're at. If any of you, I'm not a football fan, but when I was on one of my Emirates flights, I saw the interview of Alex Ferguson. And it was fascinating to see how he does the same thing. He knew what made each and every one of his players tick. And that is how he did his management, not just necessarily as a team, but as individuals, as part of that team. It's something I'm not very good at, but I work very hard at. There you go.
That's great. And great to hear that, that you take so much value in that and getting to know your staff as well. It's amazing to hear. We're getting lots of nice questions from the audience, Julian, so I'm keen to kind of go to the questions. But just one final question from me, if I may, before we pass over to the audience. But what has been the highlight of your career so far?
Travel, for one. I've been to, I can't remember now, 93, 94 countries and counting. I absolutely love it. It's a bit of a cliche, but it broadens the mind. It really does. I've worked in conflict zones. I've had Iraq on my doorstep. I still regularly go into Baghdad, and I was there over the years. And I learned something which I read somewhere, but it's very, very true. Because sometimes I go to places where I'm not looking forward to it. But my mantra is 99% of people you meet are lovely. And they are. They're very well-meaning. There's nothing to be afraid of. Moving to Dubai was a massive plus for me as well. It absolutely was not where I wanted to be. I, at the time, was working in Latin America. I speak Spanish. And the 2008 crisis had hit, but not Latin America, because it had access to cheap labor and enormous mineral wealth that China and India needed. So their economy was still booming for another year or two. And I was coming home to my partners saying, hey, we've got to have an office in Brazil, but the rest of our business was crashing. They said, no, we need you to go to Dubai, steady the ship. And actually, it's the only time we've had blood on the carpet, because I had a big fight about it. And I eventually stormed out the boardroom saying, I'll go to Dubai for 3 months and that's it. And then I'm out of there. And 15 years later, I'm still looking for the exit. So Dubai's been fantastic. I've absolutely loved my time here. I'm writing a book about my time here as well, as I mentioned. And to do that, to explain my funny anecdotes, I've gone into a deep dive of the history. I'm enjoying that as well. I think the other major highlight of my career is this. And I don't want to make too much of it. It's going to sound a bit melodramatic, but I change people's lives quite fundamentally. I never think about it in those terms. I really don't. But one of the things I do every day is I've got a list of about 5,000 people that we've placed in Dubai on their jobs. And 90% of our business comes from one of those people, okay? Because you find them a job, they end up in a position of responsibility, and they come back to us and say, look, I now need to hire people, and we get used again. So I make a point of going around everyone we've placed in the past, and I say, hey, tell me, how's it been? How's your career gone since that day 15 years ago when you got a call out the blue from me? And it's great to listen to them. Most of them are positive stories. They'll say, well, I got a call out the blue. I ended up in Dubai or Saudi Arabia. I met my wife. I've had children. I was a program manager. I'm now a CEO, CTO, whatever it might be. And all because one day, out of the blue, they picked up the phone from me or one of my staff or one of my competitors. So that's been a lovely thing to be able to do. And the other highlight just recently was selling the business. I sold 2 years ago. I'm retained by my new owners because they can't find anyone better than me. I find that very, very hard to believe. And I'm led to believe that selling a company is a very lucky thing to do. Most sales fall through, and we are a very complex sale. We work in a very complex set of markets. We're a very exotic business. We have 40 bank accounts, 20 different currencies we work in. We're not an easy company for someone to buy and slot into theirs, but we did actually pull that off, and so that was the final highlight.
Wow, that's amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that with us, Julian. I'm going to get to the questions from the audience and we'll try and get through as many as we can. The first one's from Ibrahim, and that kind of leads nicely onto what you mentioned there. Because in the advert for this event, we said that you'd worked in 90 countries that your company operates in. How have you adapted to the cultural demands of these countries, and which cultural understanding impacted these negotiations?
Oh, wow. What negotiations, I wonder? Yeah, well, I tell you what, two things. I speak Spanish, as I mentioned, and I learned that because I was spending a lot of time in Latin America, working and pleasure, actually, because I play polo. And so I wanted to learn the language. And it was only when I learned the language and got good at it that I suddenly really understood my clients a lot better. You can get under the skin of people when you learn the language. My biggest regret in Dubai is not learning Arabic. I can speak Arabic, but it's poor. I can do all the greetings. I can operate in a restaurant. I couldn't do a business meeting or anything like that. It's very difficult. And the other thing is, there are dozens and dozens and dozens of dialects of Arabic, okay? And they're all very different. So my teacher is Lebanese, and as soon as I go and try my Arabic out with my Emirati friends here in Dubai, they automatically say, yeah, we don't say any of that. That's not the words we use. We don't pronounce it like that. It's very, very different. But learning the language is the first thing. And the second thing is, the GCC, right? There's Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, Qatar, Oman, the UAE, Kuwait. They are all enormously different. And today, more or less, if you put me in front of a client from each of those countries, I would tell you 9 times out of 10 which country they're from, simply by the way they communicate and the way they want to do business. And it's taught me a lot to not make assumptions that this part of the world is not homogenous. They all work in a different way. One of the things I'm writing about in my book is how they teach you out here. They say, never go into a meeting with an Arab and talk about business straight away. Okay. You have to just talk about anything else, family, friends, the weather. And if business comes up, fine, then you can talk about it. If it doesn't come up, tough. And you'll have to try it again another day and another day. but they don't explain why they teach you that. Once you speak the language, you realize that one of the fundamental things you teach is this series of Arabic greetings that goes on for hours and hours. And it's, it's hi, how are you? How's your wife? How's the family? How's the kids? How's your health? Okay, how's business? Okay, and then it starts all over again, but it's a bit more pointed. It's hi, how are you? How's your wife? How's she getting on with him? And it goes on and on. Now, I don't know why it is that way. I think it goes back to the tribal times when you met someone, you wouldn't perhaps know what tribe they were from, or what family they were from, or what group they were from, and you needed that little dance that goes on and on to just find out who you're dealing with. But it is deeply offensive. They find it very jarring when I go into a meeting. Well, I don't these days. Shake hands, say, right, down to business. That is just very, very poor. So yeah, I hope that's answered the question. It's just deep learning of the culture. It's taught me an awful lot. The world is not homogenous. You can't just go in with your British head on and think you can just do business. You can't. There's a lot of stuff that goes on beforehand, and you mustn't make any assumptions about how things are going to operate.
Okay, thanks, Julian. The next question is from Eric, who says, as a recruiter, how do you compete with the emerging online recruitment platforms with the internet and AI technology such as LinkedIn?
Yeah, interesting. Well, I use LinkedIn. It's fantastic. It's brilliant, and yeah, it will replace us. I tell you, if anyone says my job's not going to go, well, rubbish. It will go. And there are people in my industry that say, "Oh, yeah, but you'd always need the human touch." No, you won't. No, you won't. AI will learn to do what I will do, even down to the nuances of me. I mean, look, there's lots of forms in a recruitment process. I look at someone's CV. Have you got the skills? Tick, 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 tick. And then I'm listening to the conversations and judging from the chemistry going on. Are you got? What's the alchemy here? Are you going to fit into this institution and their culture? I'm doing all that. AI will learn that, absolutely sure as eggs is eggs. So yeah, I'm quite glad I've sold my business and I'm retiring soon. It's going to be someone else's problem. I think the thing is this, though. Dare I say it? I'm not very good with tech myself, and my children, it's second nature to them. And I think what will happen is humanity's been through lots of evolutions. Okay, I think what is the one they always refer to? The printing press was the first major revolution, when all of a sudden information was available on a wide scale. But we adapt to it. The world will be a different place, and you will adapt to it. It's like I listen to podcasts all the time, and the news out here is obviously governmental, so I don't quite get a very clear picture of what's going on in the world. So I download the BBC podcast and I listen to that, and I pretty much believe in what the BBC say. But even I listen to it and I know a lot more about what's going on in my region. I can see that even my beloved BBC, and I do love the BBC, but there is an agenda there. And I listen to people with their views, and it's quite obvious that they're picking up information and views and opinions because of what they're seeing on the internet. And I worry that, where is it all going? How will people be able to discern what the truth is, and this, that, and the other? But now I think the other way, and I think my children and their children will hopefully just learn to be better at their critical thinking. I know my children absolutely do not automatically believe what they're picking up from the internet or Wikipedia. They are much more accustomed to going in and investigating that information. So in answer to the question, yeah, my job as it is now will go. No two ways about that. LinkedIn, I've been with LinkedIn since they invented themselves, and I've watched them just go better and better. It is an amazing tool. And that's going to continue. And people like me will either have to find something else to do, or we'll just fit into that dynamic in a different way of some sort.
Thanks, Julian. I'm going to merge the next two questions from Arthur and Ibrahim. Arthur says, have you got any advice for alumni? And Ibrahim's question is similar. It says, what advice can you give mature students, especially experienced postgraduates?
Yeah, okay. Now, Andy, you actually gave me a question, didn't you? Saying, what advice would I give? So I wrote down a few things here. Now, one of my answers is a bit boring and quite old-fashioned, but I'm a big believer in it. But I'm not saying everyone will want to do this. But one of the career things that you can do after virtually any degree is you can go into the major consultancies. Deloitte, PwC, McKinsey, Ernst & Young, A.T. Kearney. They all have graduate intake programs. There is a second tier of consultancies that probably do something very similar. Companies like Oliver Wyman, Peppers and Rogers, they all do the same thing. You get on the you get in the graduate program, you work there for 5 years. They want their pound of flesh, but they put you through audit, strategy, IT, finance. They give you a fantastic grounding in an awful lot of things. And as you're going through that program, of course, you gravitate to things that you're good at and you enjoy, and you get spat out the other end of this graduate program, either doing a career in consulting, or the clients that they've sent you to often will pick you up. Now, it is a fantastic start to someone's career. It's a great grounding in lots of different skills. It exposes you to many industry sectors. But not everyone can do that. I get it, but it's something to think about. My other piece of advice is worry less. Stop worrying about what you're going to do, okay? You will make good decisions. You will make bad decisions. There are no such things as good and bad decisions. They're just decisions. Just get on and do it and make the best of what you've got. It's never too late to change, okay, and learn a new skill. I know that's a cliche, but I'm 62 and I read people's CVs for a living. I see their career paths. I can see why they've gone to one place to another. And I can speak with authority that you have time, okay? The second thing is, third thing is, I'm a great advocate of travel, okay? Get out there, do some travel, have a gap year. It's brilliant. You should all do that. Again, sorry for the cliche, but it's true. It's how I operate. Get out of your comfort zone, okay? Things are never as bad as you think they're going to be, okay? It's not the change that's intimidating. It's the thought of it, okay? But once you're doing it, it's fine. You'll cope. You will swim. You will do that, okay? So just get out there. I always believe you do your best work outside your comfort zone, and it's a big learning curve, okay? So take risks, don't be afraid, okay? Things are always recoverable. That's it.
There's loads of great advice in there. Thanks, Julian. I appreciate we've got 2 minutes left, so I'm just going to try and get through as many questions as we can, if that's okay with you, Julian. So Alan says, does RP place non-executive board seats as well as executive positions?
Yeah, we do to a certain extent. Non-exec directors. Okay. Sorry, to answer the question, we actually place quite a range. There's different people in my organization that do different things. I just tend to do the senior stuff because it's who I am, and someone who's older in life wants to talk to someone who's same sort of age, and so on and so forth, and a bit of gravitas. But we probably place people from about, I'd say, in their 30s and upwards is where we are. There are other recruitment agencies that will deal in grad recruitment and things like that. It's just not where we play. And from a non-executive or board position, if that's what you are asking, it does happen, but most clients will find their board members and non-execs through their own network. They want someone that's a bit tried and tested, someone that's familiar, someone who's got a connection. It's not usual for them to come out cold to me to actually do a beauty parade. Or what they might do is they'll have someone in mind, but it's the only choice they've got. So they'll come to me and say, look, we want you to do a search on this. And what they're asking me to do is to benchmark the person that they know. And that will either confirm their suspicions that who they've got is great, or I'll actually open their eyes as to what good looks like, hopefully.
That's great. Thank you, Julian. And my final couple of questions, I'll merge them into one, is from Zanyalia, who says, have you ever struggled to understand what your life purpose is, especially when you decided to pivot from medical sales into recruitment? And then the final one is from Joan, who says, when is the book due out?
Gosh, do you know what? I've absolutely never thought about my purpose in life. I'm not a religious person. I believe in physics. And I don't know. I hope this isn't too disparaging, but I'm pretty insignificant. I'm on the planet for a very short space of time. I have had a wonderful 62 years. And if I die 5 minutes after logging off from you guys, I don't care. I really don't care. My wife hates me saying that. So do my children. But it is what it is. None of us get to choose when our time is our time. I guess I never really had a high enough opinion of myself to think I have a particular purpose. I'm a dad. I'm a boss. I'm a pretty crap polo player. I'm a very bad Arabic speaker. But I'm immensely lucky. I have had a wonderful life and a wonderful career. So no, I'm sorry, I wouldn't know what my purpose is. What was the final question? Oh, the book.
You went book out, please. Yeah.
I don't know. So I'll just briefly explain. It started off just being with a bellicose anecdotal account of all the crap I've been through trying to survive in the Middle East and getting things wrong all the time and getting into trouble as a result, and how difficult the Middle East can be. But to give those stories context, I had to go into the history of the region and understand why it is the way it is. And it was only when I did that, and dare I say it, realized just how meddling the British have been for the last 100, 200 years here, that I became a lot more understanding, a lot more sympathetic, and a lot more benevolent in my book towards the region. But the history is uncomfortable, and I write about it even so. So my friend from the BBC, a guy called Owen Bennett-Jones, he's one of their veterans. After I finish a chapter, he often says to me, he says, so, remind me again, where are you going to be when we publish? And I said, what? Dubai, of course. And he shakes his head and said, nah, you can't publish this in Dubai. You're going to have to leave the country because there's just not the freedom of press out here. Even though my book is very benevolent towards the region. So I don't know, hopefully in the next year or two, if it ever gets finished.
We'll keep an eye out for it, and we'll send out the details on to graduates as well, so they can have a read, because it sounds absolutely fascinating. We're getting lots of lovely comments in the chat, Julian, about how fascinating and inspiring it's been. So we just wanted to say a big thank you to you for giving up your time. I didn't realize you're on holiday, so yeah, that's amazing that you're giving your time on holiday. So thank you so much for joining us. I know how busy you are, and when retirement does come, good luck. It sounds like you've earned it. So thank you again for joining us. Thank you to everyone in the audience as well who's joined and asked lots of wonderful questions there to make Julian think. So thank you for joining us. Our next event will be on the 30th of May, and the details will be released in the next couple of weeks or so. So keep an eye on your emails for that.
One final word.
Yeah.
I just want to say a big thank you, A, for today, and B, for Liverpool. Honestly, guys, I owe a lot to the university in terms of friends and the start it gave me in life. Couldn't have wanted for a better town and a better university. So thank you very much. And if through Andy, you wanted to get my email just to drop me some personal questions, some further questions on careers, I'm more than happy to field those questions. So please feel free. I don't mind.
That's lovely. That's really kind of you. Thank you, Julian. Yeah, everyone should have my email address. Yeah, I've sent you all a few email reminders. So yeah, please do get in touch. Yeah, just some more lovely comments coming in for you, Julian, there. If you've got the time to have a read through, there's some lovely compliments and some feedback there for you. So thank you again to Julian. We've really enjoyed it. It's been totally inspiring. So thank you. Enjoy your holiday, and yeah, we'll see you all next time. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much,
Thank
guys.
you.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Good luck.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.